Oh, Kwekakina, bonjour tout le monde. Kwagu'ł River and Stephanie Saracen was our dancer, jingle dress dancer. I'd like to welcome you here to our traditional unceded lands. My name is Verna McGregor. Vernon Indishnikas, Kitagon Zibin and Donjaba, Wagosnedo, Dama Shichunim Kipenesi, mon nom c'est Verna McGregor, et je reste à Kitagon Zibi. C'est juste.
I'm Verna McGregor. I live in Kitagon Zibi, about 120 miles from here.
And I'm from Kitagon Zibi. I say this because I'm really honored to be here because it's been a long journey. Understanding this residential school because really quickly I remember going to work for the Assembly of First Nations in economic development, and I would get comments like, why don't you just economically develop? And but it's that understanding. And I remember though what was going on at the same time, and this was in the early 90s, mid 90s. The Royal Commission on Aboriginal People was going on, and they were taking testimonials on, and then these stories started to emerge about the residential schools. And I used to wonder, why do we have so many social issues? And when I started hearing these, I was just really, it hits you. Even the people that were taking the testimonials were traumatized by the testimonials. And this led to the TRC and the release of that report in 2016 with the recommendations. And here we are today, and I honor you for being here and learning, because I would sit with the elders in a lodge all these years, which included the architect of this place, Douglas Cardinal. And they would talk about also Native issues. And I remember that, and I remember telling them it made me so mad, like reading the testimonials and understanding what went on. And then William Kamanda, who's my relative, and the other elders, they said, you know, what was done to us here was also foretold. It was foretold the coming of the newcomers here. It was foretold we will also come to a crossroads where the earth is in trouble and we'll need to come together, regardless of our differences, because what we're doing to the earth is leading to our own detriment to the next 7 generations. And now here we are, we're in climate change. Look at how nice, I like it outside, but it's concerning when it's still like July. But also what he said was too, and I always keep this in my heart, is that he said, you know, we've been going through this trauma, when he always talk about 1492, Columbus. When the people arrived here, we've had this trauma starting with 1492, but if you really, really look at it, he said, also, you have to have understanding and compassion, because the people who landed on our shores, if you look at their history, they had to leave a lot of times because they were escaping oppression and violence too, because it takes a lot to leave a place you know your ancestors are from and go to a new world. So things sometimes must be pretty bad, and we've seen that. We have all the newcomers today, and we've welcomed everybody. And I'd like to welcome you to our traditional unceded lands. And what does unceded mean is that we never signed treaty for the lands here. So on that note, I'm going to say a little opening prayer and honor you too, because this is a learning journey. I'd like to thank the drummers too, because what we call the drum is Odewegun. Odewegun is if you look at the syntax of the word, Ode is heart, and Wegun is like an instrument It represents a heart instrument. So when they drum, they're honoring also, because the big drum was given to the men to connect with Mother Earth. And with the women, they have such a connection because of Mother Earth. So the big drum was given to the men, but also when you drum, it's in honor of being alive. And it's to honor us today as First Nations, Métis, Inuit, that we survived here. Sometimes I think we're barely hanging on, but we're still here. And that's why I'm going to honor everybody, and I want to thank Caroline. She offered me tobacco, which was part of protocol, because it was our first gift given by Creator. We have our own creation story. So anytime you harvest anything from the earth, you'd always give back an offering of tobacco, because it's a reminder of reciprocity. Also, if you ask somebody to do something like an opening prayer or teaching, there would be an offering of tobacco. And unfortunately, too, as well, this became one of the first commercial goods on contact. And like any medicine, if you use it in excess, it becomes detrimental. So it's all that learning and balance, the significance I always talk about for us as Algonquin. We're known as a Mama-Ninawag, and we're known for the birch bark canoe. I birch bark canoed here this morning from Kitagon-Zibi, and I'm still standing. No. But the significance of Ottawa, and I said that this morning, is that you're at the confluence of these rivers coming together from the four directions, and we would meet here in the summer and talk about what's going on the land. We'd come and learn new things, and that's where I find it interesting. We're here today learning new things. And again, that confluence too represents balance from the four directions to four seasons. So I always look at Parliament Hill too up there, and I said, I find it funny that the nation's capital is at that confluence, the center of balance. So anytime you see CPAC and you see them arguing, or those of you who may be in Parliament, you say it's all about balance. So on that note, I'm just going to say a little word of welcome. And so I say in honor, also this is part of protocol. I say an opening prayer, I say miigwech. O jeni gashke tochamo and dose koshe non gomo me kakina pamatsajik denizwa goshe. Shwen mishnonin abiges. Miigwech onje kakina gagishen da noje mom de gen in the kimenon. Shkaki question kazon in the kimenon. We do kakina pamatsajik timino pamatsawa joshe. En abiges. Miigwech onje kakina ete kishigon kizis to be kizis a shichinugshak. We do kwa yananokamis non on jen agrawabdan kakina guch nibi punksing saigon kichigagam sibi kakina guch. We do kwa ge kweg on jen agrawabdan kakina guch nibi. Miigwech onje ishkude kagimi jen chimino objetoyang. Miigwech onje nimashomsanon ya kizis on jen agrawabdan kakina guch pamatsa jegonje. Shwen mishnon. Miigwech onje nasewen kagimi jen chimino pamatsian. We do kwa kakina mam de get the jocks a jek non go mama ya COVID-19 a shit kakina go jocks win. We do kwa kakina and jino and dog mam de gen a mishom sanan ne gok misnan a shit and don't in this oje non go monje ne the no g-shug. Shwen mishnon in abges we do kwa ya a wen si suck. Permiss with jik pamada ge jik pamuda ge jik now ga jik me jim with jik ka shesquatning way de see me ne shit we do kwa we the margus a jik. Aquas a jik. Kaya we mi got a jik non gom che wana key watch. Shwen mishnon miigwech. I say miigwech, say merci en français, c'est merci. Miigwech is thank you, and I say it 4 times to honor, again, the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 elements, the earth, the water, the fire, the air, because without them, we wouldn't be here. And it's a reminder too, we're all on a journey here. We come from spirit in physical form. We take our first breath and we begin our earth walk here. And what our elders would say too, we come here with to face challenges. And sometimes I think some people, our spirits take on some difficult challenges. And that's why we are honoring also the children and the residential school survivors, because it has been a great challenge. And so in preparation, as you become older and preparation return back to spirit, that we have a good journey here. And one of the teachings of our Birch Bark Canoe too is to honor everybody's journey. So I wish you well, and I honor you for being here and having an awakening, because one of the biggest teachings too as well is the 4 colors of people here. And with our creation story, that we were given the original instructions to be caretakers, and the biggest teaching of that is regardless of our skin color, our beliefs, our history, our language, what binds us together, whether we like it or not, is that we all share this earth and we all belong here. So I honor you and I say miigwech, and I was going to ask somebody if they wanted to translate what I said earlier in the opening prayer, but we're running out of time. No. So I wish you a great evening, and I say miigwech. Merci, thank you. River is now going to sing us a welcome song. Bienvenue tout le monde. Welcome everybody.
Tila Ketzdala Nazamute. Greetings, all my relatives. Nimuyut. We are all one. I'm so honored to be here today to celebrate with all of you. I see every color, every race, every creed, every language, and we're sitting together today looking for something about us that's better, that's higher, that's more loving. And it's important to hold these attitudes, to hold these ideas that there is a possibility that humanity can be better than it has ever been. And we have this opportunity in Canada to make that happen. But before I go too far down the road, thank you for those beautiful words of welcome and the lesson. It's always so wonderful to be received in great houses like this, where we gather and celebrate who we are and determine what we want to be. Nukwadi kun kuligetze wakyasa. I am Chief Big Thunderbird, Awesome River. I'm a member of the Kwagu'ł tribes on the coast of British Columbia. I spent a long time in a residential school right in the heart of our territory. And I've been recovering from that ever since. I'm 85 years old now, and I'm still recovering. You know what the beauty of this thing called reconciliation is? That it's for all of us. Everybody in this room can be a part of this thing called reconciliation. We can inspire ourselves, inspire each other, hold each other up, and become the people we want to be. Acknowledged, respected, loved beyond anything else. Loved. And you know what? Love absolutely starts with yourself. It doesn't matter anymore that I fell out of love with myself when I was a little boy and my whole life went over the edge. I love myself now. So I want all of you to love yourselves fiercely. These are the sort of basics, the fundamentals of reconciliation. It just begins right here with you individually. And we can change the world. We can make things happen that give credence to the value and purpose of all people, instead of what happened here in Canada with little children when they took them away. So I'm really honored to be here. I have a few little notes. By the way, I want to be a witness to what I've just said, that any of us, all of us, can be a part of reconciliation as deeply and widely as we want. And we can be as busy and we can be as inspiring as we want. Because in my own case, that's how I just got involved. I just started going to meetings. I didn't even know what reconciliation meant. But I really knew that it was time for something better for all of us, for all Canadians, especially for Indigenous people. And now we're in this time, in this moment of change. I've been really involved in the reconciliation movement for some time. I was the co-chair of a voluntary roundtable that advocated for reconciliation before the settlement was made. We sat around the tables and we talked about what is it that we would want to see in a reconciliation process that would allow us to mitigate the historical harm and begin to be inspired to move forward and claim our rightful spirit in this time. And so with no education, I barely got past grade 12 in a residential school, but it didn't stop me. With no education, I knew that reconciliation was something that was really important and that we had to grab onto and get others to grab onto, like we have this evening. Look at all of those beautiful faces, all of those beautiful spirits. I have never, ever in my life seen the likes of people like yourself. All I felt was hatred, experiencing wrongful assumptions, prejudice, racism, and it wasn't good. But now in this country, and I've always believed, because I was involved with the ground up sort of development of the process, I've always believed that we Canadians are going to have the best reconciliation process ever across the globe. You know why? Because it's a people process. It's not something fancy thought up in a high tower anywhere. It came about because we had discussions with survivors and others across the country for a long time, and we began to get feedback on what people wanted to see in reconciliation. We, the people. And I thought, this is great. This is going to be exciting. So now here we are. 10 years, more than 10 years later now, it's National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Who ever thought that would have been possible at all? And it's Orange Shirt Day. Who ever thought? Look at the beauty of all of that orange. I just got to see you on the street. I don't know you. You might be a distant away, and I'm never going to get close to you, but I have an affinity for all of you. Because somewhere deep in our soul, deep in our hearts, we want all of us to be together, to be one, to be united, to care for each other, to love each other. That's the basic sort of promise of reconciliation. I know we have big issues to settle, and those will take care of themselves. We've got some of the most brilliant Indigenous leadership anywhere, and they'll be advancing our interests in other areas. But I'm going to tell you something that I think you have to bring home with you tonight, and it's this. If we're truly going to move this country to a high level of reconciliation, it means that all of us as Canadians, Indigenous and otherwise, have to embrace the idea that reconciliation is a core value. Think about that, a core value. You wake up to it every day and you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to follow the edicts of my core value, and I'm going to care about others, and I'm going to try to do all that I can to mitigate injustice or hate or whatever it is. Please, when you go home tonight, think about it and make an effort to adopt reconciliation as a core value. The first thing you're going to discover is that there are a whole lot of things you need to reconcile yourself about. You don't have to change the world right away. You change you, and that's why it starts with you, and that's why it has to be a core value. It's been a decade-long journey already. We've seen everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We've discovered so many things about us that we never knew about each other before. And this is the other thing I want you to remember about anything you might have heard about what I have to say tonight. It is this, that dialogue, talking to each other, creating understanding, and then transformation takes place. That's the promise. If you begin to trust each other, and you begin to hold these ideals that together we're better, we're higher, we can do more for each other, then you're going to see the change, the reconciliation will begin to take place. And we have so many tools already. We have the Truth and Reconciliation Report of Canada, 94 calls to action. Of course, a lot of them are at a higher sort of government level, but they're necessary, and we need to support efforts to elevate the conclusion of some of those 94 calls or all of those 94 calls. But where we live, where we work, where we play, we need you too. We need everybody in this room to reach out to your backyard neighbor and say hello. How are you? Who are you? What are your values? Can we do something together? You introduce each other to each other and start peeling away the walls of separation and discrimination and all of that. And we have, of course, all of the apologies. There have been so many. The first one was the Prime Minister's apology, Prime Minister Harper then. Remember that apology? And everybody argued about the idea that should we or should we not listen to this apology. But when you think back on it now and reflect, we had to have that apology. And it began to ask people about why are apologies important. For one thing, nobody was believing our truth that we've been abused in every way possible. But when the Prime Minister of a country apologizes, it's an admission, a confession that those things happened. So it began to open the portals of reconciliation. And then, of course, we had the papal apology, 2 of them. And everybody said, oh, we shouldn't listen to them. They're all BS. But when the 2 popes said the apology, the world began to know the truth about our history together. And there's something about knowledge, something about information that is so powerful that it can change how we think about certain issues, and we can begin to listen to each other a little better. And then there were church apologies, institutional apologies, and then another really important tool, and it was a genesis actually of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, Chapter 10, recommended the idea of a Truth Commission in Canada. At first, the Royal Commission on Aboriginal People actually suggested a public inquiry, and they turned the idea over to a voluntary working group. There were about 18 to 22 in it, and I was the co-chair of that particular committee. And we were told to advocate fiercely for a public inquiry. So we sat around tables for months and months, and we recognized the futility of it, and we recognized that probably the particular government at that time would never, ever give way to a public apology. Then our mindset shifted in that voluntary roundtable. Suddenly the notion of reconciliation began to take over this really legalistic sort of process that we were talking about in the first place. And it just evolved from there. We ended up with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And all of you, many of you in this room, were at many of those gatherings. And it was the first time that we had an open book on our collective history. The drama, the distress, the awfulness of it. And we began to think about, who are we? Who are we in this country? And I used to go around talking to people like this and saying, who are you in this room? Why are you here? What is your best intention? Don't just do nothing, do something. Work on this idea that together we're better, that we actually can learn to love each other. And these are just the small ABCs of reconciliation. I'm not smart enough to be thinking about the really high, powerful strokes that change masses of people and change countries. I'm just talking about where we, you and I, live, work and play, where we have this impact, where we're able to talk about our own feelings, about our own dreams. So that begins to grow, we the people. That's why this Truth Commission is going to work. And then, of course, there was a godsend. Remember the Aboriginal Healing Foundation? By the end of the term of that Aboriginal Healing Foundation, there had been over 1,500 healing projects around the country. And I sat in these circles with all these survivors, and we wept and we cried, and we were confused and we were hurt, and we didn't know what to do until it started to clear up a little bit. One day I was at a meeting, and there were two beautiful ladies from Alberta who were talking about healing, and obviously they were trained, and they said, trauma, you've got to identify and claim it. Well, hardly anybody knew about trauma then, but then we began to have some sympathy for that word. We began to think we understood it, and once that happened, we could then therefore claim it and then be able to do some serious things about training. So that was really important. And then we had the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. All of a sudden, we were on the world stage. We were no longer alone. And it inspired more of us, inspired non-Indigenous people. And we became to have more allies to work us in advancing and advocating for reconciliation. And I want to say this too. We're still arguing about whether or not reconciliation is good or bad. I'm telling you, reconciliation is underway in this country right now. Civil society groups, unions, institutions, all levels of government, faith-based groups, big business, small business. There are a lot of entities in this country giving it a shot, giving it an effort, and it's happening slowly by degree that we're beginning to understand each other a little bit more. This country is undergoing change as we speak. We don't have to fight forever. We've got to shift the rhetoric, we've got to shift the language and ask each other, how can we be able to better work with each other? Anger, I was angry all my life. It almost destroyed me. I just couldn't see or hear anything over my anger and despair and brokenness. And my life didn't mean anything until I began to recognize I would better serve myself and others if I was trying to seek solutions to this really problematic situation that we have. I've said that reconciliation is underway. It doesn't mean there's not a long way to go yet. There is. As a matter of fact, the truth be told, reconciliation will never, ever be complete. It's the nature of the best. If we get better and we get better and we get better, we still want to be better. And we had a big walk in Vancouver a few years ago. 70,000 people showed up to walk in the rain. And Dr. Martin Luther King's daughter was our guest speaker. She said, every generation has to strive for its own freedom. So just when we think we're at the gates, there'll be new challenges, new sticking points, and we're going to rise again, generation after generation, giving it our all to make sure that everybody has a sense of purpose and value in their lives, and they love each other, and they love others that they can. So we have to work harder. That's what I'm really saying. Awareness is so important. You've got to carry the message. And dialogue is absolutely critical. Dialogue is absolutely critical, and understanding is essential. When you have those elements in a dialogue and a discussion, then transformation slowly starts to come forward. You won't even know it at first, but change begins to happen. Those are the underpinnings of sustaining reconciliation. On a personal note, I beg all of you to make reconciliation that core value again. When you think about it, and keep thinking about it, you'll come up with your understanding of what it is. So, reconciliation begins with you. Everybody get that? Raise your hand if you got that. Reconciliation begins with you. Absolutely, nowhere else. It's a real chance that we have. If it begins with you and you carry it forward and you begin to look at the collective and look at how we can infuse reconciliation into the collective economic plans, social plans, or whatever higher level plans there are, reconciliation will unfold. I've been really privileged and honored to have worked with so many people in this notion of reconciliation. I've traveled the globe a little bit and spoke to audiences in faraway countries, and everywhere around the globe there's a desire for humanity to be better. And I think, and I'm biased of course, I think that we can achieve that in Canada. But we have to be bold, we have to be courageous, we have to be visionary, and we never quit. We keep advancing this idea. What else can I say, my relatives? My heart is full because all of you are here this evening. Hold on to the spirit that you have, the hearts that you possess, and continue to care not only about yourself and your family, but your community, and of course the nation and all of humanity. That's all I have to say for this evening. Thank you.
Bonsoir et
Hi, good evening, and thank you for joining us here for the official unveiling of Indian Residential School Memorial Monument of Stanley Hunt.
for the official inauguration of Stanley Hunt's Indian Residential School Memorial Monument. My name is Caroline Dromaguet, and I'm the President and CEO of the Canadian Museum of History. And I also extend a warm welcome to all of those who are joining us in the live stream. And standing on the stage, as Chief Joseph said, it's so wonderful to see all of you here with us today, and such a diverse and group, and an honor to welcome you. Thank you, Elder McGregor. It's always such an honor to welcome you here, to welcome us to the unceded territory. Thank you. And I also extend thanks to Chief Joseph for those very thoughtful remarks. I think there was a lot of very generous sharing and a lot of good takeaways that we can take along with us. And thank you to our drummers, of course, for helping us honor the moment. We are also honored to be joined both in person and online by people from all over Canada, including many people from the community of artist Stan Hunt, whose work we are here to celebrate. And a special welcome to all of you joining us from Sakis or Fort Rupert in British Columbia. Before we continue, I would like to take a moment to share how the rest of the evening will unfold. Alors avant de poursuivre, je vais expliquer quelques détails pour vous.
So before we continue, I would like to take a moment to share how the rest of this evening ceremony will unfold. Tonight, we have the privilege of welcoming the Honorable Mona Fortier, MP of Ottawa-Vanier, and we'll be privileged to hear from her later on.
Hearing from our guest of honor, Stan Hunt. I will then hand over the ceremony to Mr. Caleb Child, who is the nephew of Stanley Hunt, and who will lead us through a ceremony with the Hunt family and representatives from their community. The remarks from Mr. Stanley Hunt and his family, as well as the ceremony that they will lead, will be taking place in the museum's Four Seasons Salon, where the monument is located. As we are a very large crowd tonight, much larger than we could accommodate in the Four Seasons, the ceremony will be shared on the screens that you have on the stage here. And following the conclusion of the ceremony, you will all have an opportunity to view the monument in the Four Seasons Salon. I would also like to highlight that given the emotional nature of this evening's ceremony, a quiet area is available in the museum's resource center, which is located in the corridor just beyond the escalator. Information on accessing the National Indian Residential School crisis line is also available. Alors, je tiens également à souligner que, compte tenu la nature émotionnelle,
I would like to highlight that given the emotional nature of this evening ceremony, a quiet area is available in the museum's resource center, which is located down the corridor between the escalators. Information on accessing the National Indian Residential School crisis line is also available.
Indien que nous inaugurons ce soir, bien sûr, est une œuvre d'art remarquable. Cependant, comme d'autres l'ont déjà dit ce soir, il est bien plus que cela. Il témoigne également de l'une des choses les plus honteuses de l'histoire de ce pays.
He also testifies about something that is a dishonor to this country.
Commemorated, as it is the destructive legacy it has left in its wake. As the National Memory Institution, it is our responsibility to tell the truth about the history of this country. This history is not static. It is a living thing, and the stories that we are honored to tell this evening are still unfolding as we continue to uncover the truths and the depths of this time of our history. The monument will serve as a focal point for creating a broader awareness, recognition, and acknowledgement of these stories. Pour les musées que je représente,
For the museum that I present, the monument is also a physical reminder of the work we have to continue to do to acknowledge our own colonial past. The museum has a responsibility and a role that is important in the promotion of reconciliation in this country to promote the rights of indigenous people. This work needs to be at the core of everything we do as keepers of the culture and educators. It's obvious that our work on the repatriation, the shared agreements, the loans for long-term and the collaboration projects that foster a mutual sharing of knowledge and expertise need to continue.
This country's collective responsibility to understand this history. We will continue to do this work through exhibitions, programs on residential schools, centering survivors' voices and stories, working closely with Indigenous communities. It is our collective responsibility to listen, to bear witness to these stories, and gain an understanding of knowledge we don't have. In addition to being a nationally important memorial, the monument we are inaugurating this evening is, of course, also a masterwork by a master carver, as you will soon see. Lorsque le monument est arrivé ici l'automne dernier,
when the monument arrived here last fall, it was officially welcomed on the territory by the elder Peter de Conti from Kitiganzibi and Anishinabek during a ceremony with the members of the Hunt's family and the Kwagu'ł work community, and it was visited by several people who highlighted its power and its beauty.
It stands 5.5 meters high and was carved from a single trunk of red cedar. It features 130 faces representing the children of Indian residential schools and is topped by Raven as protector. The museum staff were pleased to work with Mr. Hunt to discuss the placement within the museum. In its new home in the Four Seasons Salon, it will have a dedicated space in Canada's National Museum of History. It is fitting that the museum should become the permanent home of the monument, where Canadians come to learn about the history of this country. The dedicated space in which the monument is located will continue to evolve and be shaped with the work of the commitment and the survivors around the country to ensure that these children and their families are honored for generations to come. Comme beaucoup d'entre vous le savent,
As many of you know, the journey across the country that the monument undertook to be here is also monumental. It's thanks to the involvement of several government organizations who supported the logistics and the transportation of the monument across several kilometers, as well as the work of dozens of colleagues here at the museum. And I'm really grateful for all you did. I would therefore like to express my sincere gratitude and my recognition to everyone who was involved.
Large flatbed truck, the monument made a number of stops along the way. These stops made it possible to share this important work with communities between here and its site of creation on the West Coast. And it has made a deep and lasting impact on people wherever it stopped on its way to us, which really demonstrates the unifying spirit it embodies. On behalf of the Canadian Museum of History, I would like to express how honored we are that Mr. Hunt reached out to us about the monument living here, and that we have had the opportunity to welcome his important work. Its prominent placement and future interpretive programming will no doubt ensure that the children of the country's residential school system are never, ever forgotten, and that memory of their lives will live on. Veuillez maintenant accueillir l'honorable.
So now, please help me welcome the Honorable Mona Fortier, Ottawa Vanier MP. Mona Fortier, you have the floor. Hi, everyone.
Truly honored to be here today on behalf of my colleague Pascal Saint-Onge, Minister of Canadian Heritage. And before I continue, I would like also to acknowledge that we are meeting here today on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. And we honor their enduring presence and stewardship of this land. Thank you, Miigwech Verna, Elder Verna McGregor, for your prayers and especially your teachings today on this very important day. And I also want to say miigwech to Chief Robert Joseph. I know he's not here, but if he's hearing me, I believe we can all say we feel the love that he was sharing with us tonight. Et merci beaucoup.
And thank you very much, Caroline Dromaguet, for welcoming us here, for creating a very special space for this monument, something that will allow all Canadians and people across the globe to come and see this important monument that will allow us to continue on this journey towards truth and reconciliation.
And to be included in the unveiling of the Indian Residential School Memorial Monument on the 4th Annual National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Today we remember the children who never returned home, those who survived, and the families and communities still living with the intergenerational impacts of the residential school system. Reconciliation is about acknowledging the truths of our shared history and the ongoing impacts of colonialism on First Nation, Inuit, and Métis peoples. La réconciliation est la
Reconciliation, it's acknowledging the truths of our common history and the persistent effects of colonialism on the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people.
And learn more about the legacy of residential schools and the broader history of Indigenous peoples in Canada. Understanding this history is not just a step towards reconciliation. It is essential to fostering respectful and meaningful relationships with Indigenous communities. Il est très important de
It's very important to remember these experiences in order to learn, to listen, and to support the healing efforts and reconciliation efforts.
Reconciliation Commission included the 82nd call to action recommending the installation of a publicly accessible and visible residential schools monument in each capital city to honor survivors and all the children who were lost to their families and communities. This monument is not only a place to gather and remember on September 30th, but is designed for reflection, education, learning, and reconciliation, 365 days a year. I want to say a special thank you to Stanley Hunt for the thoughtful design and incredibly tough work to fill this important space. And I'm grateful and honored that the federal government was able to participate in a small way to realizing this significant residential school survivor monument here in the National Capital Region. Je suis reconnaissante et
I acknowledge and I'm grateful that the federal government modestly participated to the realization of this monument of residential school survivors here in the national capital.
his historic monument, and I commit to returning frequently with my family to continue my personal learning journey toward reconciliation. Chimigwech, thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Madame Fortier, for being here with us on this historic occasion. Alors, j'ai eu l'honneur d'être présente à l'arrivée du
I've had the honor I had the honor of being present when the monument arrived last fall. And it was a very remarkable event since my last 25 years here at the museum. And it's one of the most beautiful collaborations I had the opportunity to see.
to inspire learning, 365 days a year, as you've said. These learning opportunities every time that you interact with it. I picture school groups coming here to see the monument and learning and bringing what they've learned in the space home to their family. The children by the monument aren't forgotten, and the children of today and tomorrow will carry this knowledge and understanding forward. So thank you, Stan, for reminding us of the importance of creating works like the monument, as well as the ongoing need for truth and reconciliation across our country. It is now my great, great honor to introduce our guest of honor who, along with members of his family, have traveled to be here today. Please welcome Kwagu'ł artist and master carver Stanley C. Hunt.
Yo mom, yo dad, yo our ancestors. My name is Kwagu'ł. I come from the village of Takis, Fort Rupert. I'm here with my family with the monument. We started this monument a couple of years ago and finished it maybe about a year ago in June. And then we traveled across the country with it. I express my love and my gratitude to my nephew, Raymond Dickey, and my nephew, Mervyn Child. Sometimes when you make a piece such as this, you do it more from your heart than you do from your soul. We were inspired to do this because of the fact that they found 215 children in Kamloops. And then today, while I was at our hotel, I took a break and we went and laid down, but I ended up watching the ceremony from Parliament Hill. And I learned something there. I've always wondered really how many children have been found. But they told us that on that ceremony, that there's just over 4,000 children. And I wondered how there could be such a number as that and nobody ever questioned it. I wonder how that could possibly happen. I've said this before and I'll say it here, is that it doesn't matter what country you're from or what language you speak. You couldn't put words together to make this make sense. All those children came from loving families, from thousands and thousands of years of being brought up Bakum, which is us, we're Indians, we're natives. That was a very successful system for thousands of years. And it changed. For 150 years, they've kept that secret. But I believe that now that we know that this is a fact, and now that we know that it's part of our history, even though it's a dark part of our history, and most people, they don't want to talk about something like that. In fact, I don't like talking about it. But since they know that we know, if I was them, I'd bring all the paperwork right to us and put it in front of us and let us find those children. We shouldn't be looking for them anymore. They should just point out right in front of you, right there, that one's Stanley, that one's Richard, that one's Tony, there's David, Shirley, all of those children. They know where they are, and they know who all those kids were given a name, an English name, when they were taken to those schools. And when you say schools, that's absolutely the wrong word for it to begin with. They were institutions. They said the word school to make people around Canada think that they were trying to help us. If it was a true school, well, there wouldn't have been a graveyard in that school. And there's graveyards in all the residential schools across Canada, and in fact, all around the world. So we're here today to recognize that truth. And to uplift our children, and to recognize the children that went to those residential schools. I don't think that every single RCMP, or I don't think that every single nun or priest or who it might have been, I don't paint it all with one brush. I do believe there were some people back then that wouldn't take an order like that. How would you take an order like that when you're facing a 5-year-old child or a 7-year-old child? Or how would you sleep after that? But I guess they did sleep. The reason I think they slept is because it was a secret for 150 years. I watched this morning at our ceremony, I watched our family come in the space that we're talking in right now. And I was especially watching our Ginginanam, our children. And we did our ceremony here in the hall with the monument. And I don't think I've ever been as proud as I was today to see the children. That's the reason we're here, is for our children. I wouldn't imagine how anybody could possibly feel that their child was taken and brought to what they said was a residential school, and they never saw their child again. And then 50, 60, 70 years later, you found out they're in the field, in a shallow grave, in a ditch with some dirt thrown on them, with no love, no ceremony. Well, we're here to find them. If we can find them, and we do find them, or when we find them, that we identify them. We give them their names. We give them a proper send-off to the spirit world. This raven's been created to help us do that. If you look closely at the raven's beak, he has the seed of life in his beak. His wings are sort of down to call those little spirits home, to bring them back to their family. That's where they deserve to be. So my hope in the future is that when we find our children, that we give them proper burials. And when we mark them, I don't think it's going to be with the cross on it. I think that's what put them there. For our children, I think it would be a copper shield with their names and ages and dates and who their family was and who their mom and dad was. If Canada can understand that this is the truth, if all across the country, if we can understand this and learn more about it, I think that Canada would have a better chance at reconciliation. Truth and reconciliation is so vague, but you just have to really watch what you see on the news, read the newspapers, go back in history and read some history of Canada, and you'll start seeing that there's some blanked out pages that have been kept a secret. I'm very proud to be here with this much of our family. I believe there's 47 people of our family here at the museum today. And then we've had many, many friends and family. I'd like to thank the museum for giving us the opportunity to be in the Canadian Museum of History. To me, it's like the pinnacle of museums in Canada. And I'm very honored to have this monument here in our museum. I'd like to thank you all for listening to this story, and hopefully one day we'll all learn more and we'll all be better humans for what we've learned. And that this never happens again. Thank you for listening to this. Gaelic also.
Gia Kesla, Hamasa Lukola Te, Sisakola, Gigi Gamet, Anugwa Muskamzi, Gautan Lach Takis, Kwagu'ł, Gia Kesla Girganzibi, Lu Algonquin, Lidlat Lola, La Kushilka Gachanuk, Owina Wisek Our friends and relatives, my name is Muskamzi, and I have the great honor and privilege to stand with this great family and this great house of history We represent the Kwagu'ł First Nation from the Kwagu'ł, the speakers of the Kwagu'ł language, and our traditional territories on the north end of Vancouver Island and the adjacent mainland. It is protocol and customary to acknowledge that we too are guests on these sacred unceded lands of our Algonquin hosts, and we are grateful to them for opening up this great house so that we can commemorate this sacred work alongside our chief, Kwagu'ł Waikas, and also our uncles, Kwagu'ł Balasame, Kwagu'ł Stanley Clifford Hunt, Uncle Mervyn Child, and the hands of Cousin Ray Dickey. This morning we had the opportunity to stand in unity, commemorating the intention and the responsibility and the expression of love from our uncles, enshrining more than 130 faces of children representing more than 1,000 children who experience the residential school system. And it's hard to find the words in our hearts this evening to express just the statement that we stand in, the linked arms that we have as all of Canada on this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It is also important to acknowledge the strength in our unity and that the sorrow in our hearts on days like today through the truths of our uncles who have just shared their heart, that by standing together and holding each other up and holding up our ginginanam, our hasta halayu, our kweikwalayu, our very reason for living, our very reason for breathing, our children are fundamentally the center of all that we do. And so with that intention, we'd like to acknowledge all of our family who are supporting us, singing and dancing with us and holding up this work back in our home territories across this great nation, from Tajes, the Kwagu'ł capital of our world, all the way to this capital of the colonial system that we are all standing in today. At this time, we're going to ask our young people to make their way behind the Maui, the bedroom of the spirit world. And in the words of our late great-grandfather, Washlawidi, Chief Tommy Hunt, he often reminded us that we can't just say, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, that we have to sing and we have to dance. And so we're going to open up this great house and turn over the floor to our children, to our youth, so that they can share with us those sacred teachings and the statement that we are made whole again through the songs, the tradition, the language, the regalia, and those days not long ago represented by this reality are no longer this reality. Ila kasla, wikwalayu. We're going to open this beautiful house with a song that comes to our family. We want to share a great tradition called Tlohuatla. It makes reference to the supernatural power held by our women and our female dancers as our chief makers, as our life givers. And this song belongs to the grandfather of Kwagu'ł Balasame, the name that our artist and uncle Stan Hunt carries today. Agia Kasla. So friends and relatives, we just want to again acknowledge the strength of our youth, the strength of the spirit of our children, as our uncle Kwagu'ł acknowledged this morning in the dedication of this monument, that will stand here and invite a conversation, invite further responsibility and commitment towards reconciliation and the work that each of us represents. We're grateful to our ladies for their medicine and for the work that they represent this evening in opening up this great house on behalf of our family. At this time, I'd like to just again on behalf of our uncles stand up. Uncle Bobby Joe, Chief Dr. Robert Joseph. Chief Dr. Robert Joseph, Kun Kwaligedzi Waikas. In his opening statements, he recognized the profound meaning of his name as Thunderbird all over the world, as Great River. And on behalf of our family, we wanted to stand him before one of our grandchildren dances this sacred dance of the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is one of the first ancestors of the Kwagu'ł.
Quite a few of the tribes.
Quite a few of the tribes, and we wanted to also acknowledge and ask that we give a round of applause to our Chief Ambassador for the work that he continues to exemplify on behalf of all of us. Gila Kesla Gigamet. The next dance privilege that our young people are going to share connects us to the first dawn of daylight. As our Thunderbird ancestors came down from the sky realm and set down the Pasa or potlatch traditions amongst the Kwagu'ł, our Nanalalath, our dance of the weather, our dance of the day, sometimes referred to as the swan dance, recognizes the ancient times of when the first songs and the first light came to us in the physical world. It's symbolic and significant that our young dancers share the Nanalalat this evening because it was one of the sacred dances amongst our people that was danced after the potlatch prohibition was repealed in 1952. So our great-grandfathers, our great-grandmothers, all of our grandparents and our ancestors who opened up Wawadisa, the Mungo Martin House in what is now Lekwungen Territory, Victoria, British Columbia, that first open public potlatch allowed us to share this dance again. And it was our late grandmother who's bestowed this to one of our nieces. And so each of our dancers are initiated as Nanalalat dancers. And we wanted to share it again as a representation of the continuing tradition, the fact that our communities continue to revitalize and to continue to renaissance all of what was put away, all of what was oppressed and put underground during those dark times. Yeah, Kasla. So we are grateful on behalf of our family It is customary to recognize that all of our songs, our dances, our regalia is cultural property bestowed to us by our birthrights and through hereditary chieftainships that pass from one generation to the next. So on behalf of our chief and our uncles, we want to acknowledge Gigme Tasu Tewalis Nastimus, Dlu Wakawidi, Chief Calvin Hunt, Chief William Wasden, and many of the other cultural leaders from our home territories who have allowed us to carry some of their songs and anchor the work of our youth this evening through your generosity and through your strength in linking arms with our family this evening as we dedicate this work and commemorate the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. At this time, we're now going to roll over the House. Our people are famous amongst the Kwagu'ł and Kwagu'ł speaking peoples territory for the extended duration of our potlatches that in traditional times would span months of the winter. Our people would go inside when the world and the weather got angry and dark and reaffirm our histories, reaffirm who we are, and pass those societies, those dances and songs from generation to generation. And then in the summer months, we would roll over the world to the Dlualacha or Tlasla ceremonies. And again, through the treasures, through the legacy and hereditary leadership bestowed to the Hunt family, we are now going to share a number of Tlasla dances that come to us through our Tlingit and our northern blood connections through a matriarch from Tongass, Alaska, Ani Salaga. The first dance and songs come to our chief and to our uncles through his late brother, David. And so it's important to always recognize that although our family members are on the other side, they've traveled with us to this great house, and they stand with us as we share their songs and dance privileges. Akila Kasla. Ogia Kesla, friends and relatives. During our Tluolachar Tlaslas ceremonies, it is prerogative to escort one of the headdress dancers out of the house. And often that dancer will return in supernatural form in a tlugwe, or in a treasure that comes from the house of our chiefs. And so that raven transformation mask is also a tlugwe that comes from our Hunt family, and it lives here in a permanent home in this great house of history here in the nation's capital, carved by our uncle Calvin Hunt. And so again, it's with gratitude that in our relationship, we can utilize these opportunities to share the living culture of who we are and who we continue to be on days like today. We're now going to invite all of our young people out in a family dance. At the end of our potlatches, we have our host family take the floor, and in the spirit of our children, in the words of our uncle, and just the metaphor of who we are and who we aspire to be, and the great treasure of our youth, they're going to come out into this great house and dance a very famous song known to many nations on the Pacific Northwest coast through the generosity of our chief and our late chief, Frank Nelson, who composed this song, gifted it to his brother, who in turn, through the generous nature of our chiefs, bestowed the privileges to use it up and down the coast. So it's referred to as the Tribal Journey Song, Wok Atnia, and it speaks to that flight. It speaks to the wealth and prerogatives of our chiefs and our families, and to bringing thunder and to bringing lightning all over the world. And it really is through the strength of our people and the revitalization of who we are that we now have opportunities to share. Ila Kesla.
So the next supernatural gift that Lugwe of that last dance will be the echo mask. And what the echo mask reflects are the different entities underwater in the ocean. And so as you'll watch really closely, the features of this dance keep changing, and they reflect, it's like a parallel kingdom. So we have thunderbirds in the natural world, we have other things in the natural world, and they can be underwater as well. So just watch really closely as the changing features in the dance come forward. It's like a reflection. It's called sapa, to echo back and forth the reflection of the different entities under the ocean.
So friends and relatives, that concludes this part of our ceremonies. And on behalf of our family and our youth, we want to just ensure that we leave this good medicine shared by our young people. We leave those good intentions, those sacred words from our chiefs, the hands and hearts of our family who have adorned this great house with the responsibility and a maturing conversation of who we want to be. This great tree, this great cedar relative came down in our territories, and I remember the day well when Uncle Stan and family spread eagle down the first time outside his workshop in his backyard in Kwagu'ł territory. And the significance of that day is that this monument was blessed on the same day the Pope arrived to Canada. And to be here on behalf of our family, both here and far, to witness this supernatural day and the blessing that we've underwent this morning, the blessings and the good feelings that we leave here in this house. We're now going to stand and travel out of this space and make way for all of you to come to witness and to reflect and to commit to greater actions to the journey we are all on. Agia kesa a Kwagu'ł atlita doa. Away.
Thank you very much, Stan, and to the members of your family and your community for allowing us to be part of this moment that I think will be with us for a very, very long time. Thank you so much. So this ends the official portion of our evening. So in just a moment, we're going to be inviting back the wonderful Indigenous experience, Madaki Farm and Eagle River, to the stage for other performances. So just before we open the Four Seasons Salon to our guests, we'll invite perhaps the first two rows to make their way to the Four Seasons Salon, and I'll invite Chief Verna McGregor to lead the way. I'm sorry, Chief Elder McGregor, I apologize. And after that, of course, you're all welcome to view the monument. And because the space is a little bit limited back in the salon, I do invite you to stay behind to enjoy some refreshments and some performances. And I just want to thank you all again for being part of this wonderful evening. And I hope that you will return very soon to see the monument. Thank you very much.
On behalf of our family, we too just want to say Gila Kasla for hosting, and it's customary amongst our traditions to close the house with an amlala, or play songs, fun songs, social dances. And so you witnessed us dance out, and so it would only be right if we carried on a little bit longer. I know we can't all go view the monument at once, so if you're so inclined, please stay here and dance with us, and let's close the evening together with all of that good medicine in our hearts for all of the work that we've witnessed, to Uncle Stan, to Uncle Merv, and to all of us at this gathering. Gila Kasla. This isn't an observation activity. You got to just fold in and dance with all the family.
One more, that's